Is justice really blind? Or do we live in a two-tiered justice system that judges its citizens based upon their gender rather than a crime they have committed? What is the penalty for a female teacher who has intimate relationships with her students? In America, most school districts have eliminated their sexual education classes as being too obtrusive into the lives of their young adults. These classes were meant to prepare students for the eventuality of having sex, but there was no eventuality for them having sex with their own teacher. Tonight, on Predator 101, we discuss a justice system based upon gender. Tonight's episode, Teacher Gone Wild. If you don't already have your popcorn for this episode of Predator 101, might I suggest that you get it. Also, might I suggest that you get all of your friends on social media to tune in because you're in for a surprise with this salacious case. Some things we mention here we would have never mentioned on this particular show before. At any one particular time of day, parents frightened when they hear an active shooter on a campus of their school where their child has been sent for safe attendance. But what happens on a secured campus from within the safe confine of a child's class is something far worse these days when it comes to salaciousness. Current statistics suggest that at least one teacher is arrested every day of the school year in America, or roughly about 350 adult teachers. I guess every time society believes that it has scraped the bottom of the barrel on these predatory cases, we find that there is still some scum left to go. This particular heinous case involves a teacher who was assigned to teach chemistry and environmental science at the Oak Ridge High School in Conroe, Texas. Now, she was not assigned to teach sexual education because she would have been a success at that. Oak Ridge High School is in the Montgomery County just north of Houston, Texas, where one Mrs. Bonnie Guess Mazak decided she would have a sexual relationship with one of her 15-year-old students. That's right, I said 15. Now, teacher Bonnie, pictured here, with purple hair, will begin this tryst by prompting the student with this tired old line that adult men and women use on each other. She said, "My husband isn't satisfying me at home, so you will have to satisfy me." Now, this one statement would often come back to haunt Bonnie and spell her doom with the school, the media, and Bonnie's family. But she was willing to go for it. You see, I'm quite sure this so-called lack of satisfaction came as a complete surprise by her husband of 4 years, Mr. Eric Mazak, pictured here, kissing Bonnie, and especially with this photo with her infant child and husband. I'm sure that once this case broke, it came as a complete shock to her next-door neighbors in the Mazak home, pictured here. So she had a lot to throw away, and in these cases, those women throw away a lot of stuff. Now, note a caution. Since the child was a minor in this particular case, his name will not be used for this story, but for identification purposes, we will refer to him as John Doe, and his legal guardian, the woman, as Jane Doe. So when you hear me say those two titles, that's what I'm talking about. Now, here are the case facts on this predatory teacher. Guess Mazak preyed upon Doe, the young man, because she knew he was a troubled adolescent who survived a difficult childhood. And in these predator cases, it's always you prey on a child who's gone through something difficult. Now, Doe's father abandoned him as a child, and his mother was murdered. Doe has been raised by Jane Roe, his guardian, who brings the lawsuit on his behalf after she found out that this went on. In October 2021, during his sophomore year at Oak Ridge High School, student Doe's science teacher, Guess Mazak, a woman in her 30s, preyed on the 15-year-old Doe knowing that he was young and otherwise a vulnerable person. So all predators, this is what they do. And I guess Mazak asked Doe to stay with her in the classroom after the rest of the class was dismissed, and met with Doe alone with the door to the classroom closed and locked behind the dismissed students. So this is an indication of where we're going with this relationship. because school classrooms are not locked unless there's a predator on the campus. Now, at this closed-door meeting, Guest Mazak began to groom Doe for a sexual relationship, and in furtherance of that goal, asked Doe for his Snapchat username. Guest Mazak then began to seduce Doe via Snapchat by sending seductive photos of herself, appended with salacious messages, and then by encouraging him to take prescription and over-the-counter drugs during sex with her. So in a lot of these cases, you find that the woman or man tries to get the person inebriated before they have sex. Now, the sexual assault continued repeatedly over several months.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
Throughout the fall and winter of 2021, Guest Mazak and student Doe have repeated sexual contact at different locations, including Guest Mazak's car and student Doe's home while his guardian was away. As I said before, in these cases, there's a particular pattern: drugs and absence of parents. Now, Guest Mazak also purchased or gave money to Doe to purchase prescriptions and over-the-counter drugs and encouraged Doe to abuse those substances prior to their having sex. So they always try to stack the deck against the child so they don't tell. On January 12, 2022, just last year, student Doe overdosed on prescription drugs that Guest Mazak gave student Doe. Student Doe was transported to the hospital in critical condition, where he survived after a very lengthy stay. It was a touch and go. Now, once the student Doe's guardian found out about the whole sort of detail, she was livid. It was then that student Doe's legal guardian, Jane Doe, filed legal action against all parties involved in the boy's harm. Now, as long as I've been doing these cases, I've never seen a particular case where the child overdosed from drugs. I've seen it where they've given them drugs, given them marijuana, but nothing this heinous. Now, Doe's guardian filed a civil action asserting claims under federal law against the Conroe Independent School District and asserting claims under federal and state law against teacher Guest Mazak. As the school district, Jane Doe first alleged that it violated state statute 1983 by failing to adequately train its teachers and staff to identify illegal and inappropriate student-teacher relationships. So she was saying that the school should have saw this coming. In some of these cases, there is a history, in some cases not. Jane Doe alleges that even though the illicit relationship between Guest Mazak and student Doe was an open secret that students frequently discuss, school staff and administrators were not trained to recognize and report inappropriate sexual relationship between student and teachers. Now, when parents first enter their children to elementary, we don't even think this is going to happen. So who can guess this would happen? You look out for other things, but you don't look out for this. Now, second guardian Jane Doe alleges that the school district failed to properly screen teachers and other employees, even though the district had at least a half dozen instances of several sexual assaults of students by employees in the last 20 years. So you're talking about a half a dozen is a pattern. Jane Doe alleges that upon information and belief, an adequate background check would have revealed teacher Guest Mazak had a pedophilic tendencies. So if they had done a better job of checking her background, they would know that she has pedophilic tendencies just like a man would. And third, Jane Doe alleges that the school district failed to adequately supervise teacher Guest Mazak, who not only assaulted student Doe, but also attempted to seduce other students under her protection. And using these cases, they find it's not just one student, but several students. Jane Doe alleges that the school district should not have allowed opposite-sex student-teacher private meetings on school grounds, and that by explicitly permitting these meetings, the school district itself promulgated a policy and procedure that demonstrates a conscious indifference to the 14th Amendment rights of the student of that district, and Doe in particular. So each student is already protected under law under the 14th Amendment. Although they are children, they are protected under the 14th Amendment. As to Guest Mazak, Doe alleges she violated Doe's due process rights under the 14th Amendment to be free of illegal sexual advances by his teacher at school. Doe alleges that Guest Mazak assaulted, battered, and raped him because Doe had not reached the age of consent at the time of Guest Mazak's seduction. Now, I'm pretty sure she had plenty of men all around her. She liked young people. 18-year-old students had graduated a year before. Finally, Guardian Jane Doe asserts 3 state law negligence claims against Snap Incorporated, the company, the owner of Snapchat. Doe alleges that Snap is liable for a negligent undertaking because it claims to have undertaken to protect its young users by reporting all instances of child sexual exploitation to authorities. A duty that it breached by failing to exercise reasonable care in performing its data mining services and failing to intervene when teacher Mazok started sending sexually explicit messages and images to a 15-year-old boy.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
Jane Doe also alleges that Snapchat is negligently designed because the application allows for the widespread practice of using false birth dates, so that users now, younger than 13 years old, are using the application. And a lot of parents know that their children will change their age to be a part of these sites. Jane Doe further alleges that by creating an environment where adults can interact with underage users, and assurances that there will be no longer lasting evidence of those interactions. Now, Snap has fostered an environment that draws in sexual predators and allows them to act with impunity, and Doe alleges a claim of gross negligence on their behalf, stating that when viewed objectively, Snap presented an extreme risk of grievous harm and marketing and application to minors that by design allow pedophiles to prey on them with apparent impunity. Now, one thing about the judge in this case, he dismissed the claim against Snapchat, he dismissed the claim against the teacher, he dismissed the claim against the school. Now, when this molestation incident involving drugs came to light, teacher guest Mazok was placed on administrative leave after being arrested and charged with indecency with a child on January 25th of last year. At that time, she posted a $100,000 bond and was out of jail at that time, records showed. So she had a brief time before she was sent back to the court and they decided her sentence. Teacher Bonnie Rose Guest Mazok, age 36 at the time of her sentencing, pleaded guilty to sexual assault of a child on July the 13th of the year 2022. And she was sentenced to 10 years in prison on October the 3rd, 2022. At her trial, the family's attorney, Derek Merman, said, "This boy's school was in his safe haven, a place he could be safe." The family's attorney, Derek Merman, said he trusted his teacher and the staff around him. All the parties failed him and must be held accountable. It didn't change what the judge decided to do in the other civil trial, but this is what he felt. He said, when you send your children to school, you want to make sure they are not bullied. Co-counsel attorney Andrea Koski said, you want to make sure they are educated. You want to make sure that they are happy. And of course, you want to protect them from their worst nightmare. And there can be no worse nightmare than this. Now, Conroy ISD didn't comment on the lawsuit citing pending litigation. But of this event, Oak Ridge principal A.J. Levecchi, he wrote this in a statement, and I quote, he says, "I want to assure you that Oak Ridge High School and Conroy ISD are committed to providing a safe learning environment for your children." Now, this is the letter he sent out to parents. This is a letter that was sent out to the media after the genie was already out of the bottle. Now, until we see you again next time on Predator 101, thank you for watching.
It's okay. Feel the vibe is hazy. You feel it? You're my